What is going on, YouTube family, and welcome back to my channel. You guys, today is Tuesday, December 15th. We are 10 days away from Christmas. For those of my subscribers who celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, any of those holidays, I just want to say happy holidays to you guys in advance. I feel it's like the holiday season. So today we're going to be talking about Thor, released in 2011, and this should have came out yesterday. On Monday, part of the Marvel Movie Monday series, but it's still going to be a part of the Marvel series. I think I've been kind of like away a little bit. I've been posting some videos here and there, but basically, you guys, I'm on vacation for my full-time job this week. This was my final week of school for the semester, and your boy passed his final exam, his math final exam today, 98%, you guys. So I was studying yesterday. I was doing so many other things, and that's why I wasn't able to get this video out yesterday. So you guys, I'm excited. I'm done with school for about a month and a half. So let's get right into it, guys. Today we're going to be talking about Thor, released in 2011, starring Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Anthony Hopkins, Rene Russo, and Tom Hiddleston, and a bunch of other talented actors who I'll talk about. So you guys, this is gonna be a full spoiler review for Thor, released in 2011. It's not gonna be a full play-by-play. I'm not gonna go plot for plot, because if I do, this video will be 30 minutes long, and I'm not trying to bore anybody. So we're just gonna do quick review, spoilers, the meat and potatoes of Thor. So Thor, it starts with like a flashback talking about like the history of Asgard. And right off the bat, you guys, what I love about this film is just, I didn't know much about Thor before this film came out. I was more of a Captain America, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and X-Men fan, talking about Marvel. With the Marvel Cinematic Universe, those were like my real big introductions to the backstories of Iron Man, of Thor, of the Black Widow and Hawkeye. So this was like, the only thing I knew about Thor before this, I think around this time, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was a cartoon show that came out on Disney XD. I think it came out maybe slightly before this. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was around this time. So with Thor, the only introduction I really had to him was, like I said, Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the TV show, the Ultimate Avengers 1 and 2. They were animated. They were kind of like more. They were like kids show. Like it was like Marvel if it was like PG-13, and I think they actually had like PG-13 ratings. The Ultimate Avengers 1 and 2. They were kind of like almost like the DC animated universe version of like some Marvel movies they had come out with. So those two movies were awesome. They had Thor in them. And Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Most people who never heard of it, it was a video game. There was two of them. There was recently another one that came out, which takes place in a completely separate continuity from the first two. But it was a video game that came out on Xbox, the original, and PlayStation 2. And then they came out with HD versions on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. And a couple years ago, they updated them to Xbox One and PlayStation 4. I had it on the Xbox One for a little bit before I traded my Xbox for my PlayStation 4. So yeah, that's all I knew about Thor, was basically, you know, that he was a Norse deity, that he was based on a Norse deity of the same name. I knew he existed in Marvel Comics. I knew about his father, Odin. I didn't know about Frigga, his mother, played by Rene Russo. I kind of knew a little bit about Jane Foster, because I think Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1, he mentions Jane Foster. I knew Loki was his brother, adopted brother, and I knew that Thor was the Crown Prince of Asgard. I knew about the Bifrost Bridge and Asgard and all these things. I didn't know much about the realms. So this is a fish out of water tale, and what basically happens is that the film kind of has some history of Asgard, some of the things that Odin has done, and basically it picks up in, at that time, modern day. You know, we see Thor, Crown Prince of Asgard. We soon discover that Thor is pretty arrogant, brash, pig-headed. He doesn't really listen much. He likes to do his own thing. And that's kind of where the conflict of the film comes into. Basically, what happens is that a couple of frost giants are able to get into Odin, his father's like trophy room or storage room or something like that. And Thor takes it as an act of aggression, an act of war. So Thor is trying to reason with Odin to go to war with Jotunheim. But Odin has been king for thousands of years, and he basically comes to understand, like, a wise king doesn't seek out war. A wise king only resorts to war when it's absolutely necessary. And he's trying to teach Thor these things because Thor is young. He's brash. He doesn't really listen to Odin much. He's kind of arrogant. And, being a prince could probably do these type of things to you because you can probably have this larger-than-life persona. We see it in everyday life. So Thor disobeys Odin and goes to Jotunheim, which is where the Frost Giants live. And he basically wages war against the Frost Giants. He takes out a few of them. And what ends up happening is that Laufey, who is the king of Jotunheim, just like Odin is the king of Asgard, takes this as an act of war and is basically about to kill Thor, his friends, the Warriors 3, Lady Sif, and his brother Loki. He's basically going to try to kill them. So Odin comes to the rescue, rescues them, and tries to reason with Laufey that Thor did not act on his order. He just is a boy doing things that boys do. So he tells Laufey not to take it as an act of war, and Laufey is having none of it. So he says, your boy wanted war. He's going to get war. So Odin basically says, so be it. Teleports all of them out of there. And him and Thor get into like a verbal altercation. And he pretty much not demeans Thor, but he really chastises him, lets him know that his actions were foolish, that, now he has to deal with the war, because as I said earlier, Odin has learned through years of experience of being king that a wise king does not seek out war, only when it's absolutely necessary. So Thor calls him a foolish old man, and Odin basically strips Thor of his powers, strips him of his realms, strips him of everything, strips him of his hammer, Mjolnir, which only Thor really can wield, but Odin can wield it. That's a big thing within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel Comics, is that not many people can lift Thor's hammer. You have to be worthy. And Odin is, I guess because Odin gave him the hammer or had the hammer made for him, Odin can wield it. He's worthy to wield it. He's the king of Asgard. So Thor's banished to Earth, and that's where the fish out of water stuff comes into. That's where he basically meets Dr. Eric Selvig, Jane Foster, Darcy Lewis, I think is her last name. Agent Coulson comes back. Clark Gregg reprises the role from Iron Man 1 and 2 as Agent Phil Coulson. Another thing I like about this film. So Thor basically, his whole plot of this film is trying to recover his hammer, get his powers back, return to Asgard. So what happens, what we come to understand is that Loki, his brother, the god of mischief, is the one who set up the conflict of this film. He knew, it's implied that he knew that he, over time, as he grew, he knew that he wasn't Odin and Frigga's real son. And what we discover is that Loki is actually a frost giant. And I can't remember exactly. You guys let me know in the comment section below. I think Laufey is his father. I'm not 100%. Maybe in another comic media, maybe in comic books or something, that was confirmed. And maybe it's not in the MCU. Maybe it is. I really don't remember. I rewatched the movie last week, and I really can't remember if they confirm it in the film or not. But yeah, so he kind of, it's implied that Loki learned sometime before the events of the film in his childhood somewhere that he's not Odin and Frigga's real son. Knowing this is that he knows that Thor will rightfully take as the son of Odin, the biological son of Odin and Frigga, he will one day take the throne. And Loki always wanted the throne. So he set up the events of the film. He set up an alliance with Laufey and the Frost Giants to get in and do whatever they do. And later he forms an alliance with Laufey to kill Odin. So Odin enters the Odin sleep, which in all comic media that deal with Odin, the Marvel comics, is that Odin has to take the Odin sleep every. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how often he has to take the Odin. He has to go into the Odin sleep. I think it's like every couple years, every once a year, something like that. I can't remember because Odin is so powerful. He has to enter the Odin sleep to restore his powers and regain. So he's basically like in a coma these entire times, which normally always leaves Asgard open to attack because, you know, the enemies of Asgard know that Odin has to enter into the Odin sleep, and usually Thor has to defend Asgard, whatever. But Thor is banished to Earth by Odin. Loki assumes the throne. Nobody elects him. Nobody appoints him. He just assumes the throne. All of this was his plan. And he actually comes to Earth and lies to Thor and tells Thor that Odin is dead. And Thor asks him, can he lift his banishment and allow him to come home? And Loki says that his first act as king can't undo the last act of Odin, the king. So Thor believes his father is dead. He's, you know, in a depressed state. He's low. All these bad things have happened to him. So the Warriors 3 actually come to Earth to let Thor know that Loki is kind of behind the scenes doing a lot of things that he shouldn't be doing, waging war. Loki's ultimate plan in this film, aside from ascending to the throne, is to destroy Jotunheim. And I'm not sure if they stated in the film, but the implication I got from rewatching the film is that he ultimately wants to make Odin proud, in a twisted sort of way. And maybe, and again, I'm not sure if it's implied. I just take the implication that maybe the reason Loki wants to destroy Jotunheim is because he knows he's a true frost giant. That's where the frost giants come from. So maybe he hates that part of himself. I don't know. That's kind of the implication I get from watching the film. And like I said, I don't know if it's stated or not, so you guys don't quote me on that. But he's basically going to destroy Jotunheim. He's going to double-cross Laufey in his deal. So when Laufey does come to Asgard to kill Odin, Loki betrays him and kills him, like stabs him in the back, does away with him. So on Earth, Loki had sent a destroyer, which kind of looks like some kind of Asgardian version of like Iron Man. Honestly, it's this huge giant metal robot. And they even joke about it in the film. I think it's Coulson says, "Oh, this looks like something Stark would have made." They're talking about Iron Man. It's a funny little jab. So, the Warriors 3 are trying to fight the destroyer because they're in like New Mexico. And for those who saw Iron Man 2 actually set up the events of Thor because we see Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, in a desert in New Mexico. And that's basically where the plot of this film takes place, outside of like the Asgard and Jotunheim and other realms and things like that. So they're in New Mexico. The Warriors 3 are trying to take out the destroyer. They're no match for it. So Thor delivers a message, like speaks to the destroyer. Really, he's speaking to Loki through the destroyer, tells him, leave these innocent people alone, because Thor's banishment and everything he's been through on Earth has kind of changed him. Being with the humans and falling in love with Jane Foster has changed him. He's not this person trying to wage war anymore. He kind of has come to accept the error of his ways and makes a change in his life. So Loki has the destroyer like backhand Thor, and it seems like he's dead. But for Thor to have this selfless act of willing to sacrifice, because he even says to Loki, if you want to take somebody's life, take my life and leave these people alone. So it's implied in the film that this courageous act makes him worthy to wield Mjolnir again, to be worthy of the power of Thor. So there's that scene where he gets knocked out and they're trying to wake him up. They think he's dead, and then he wields Mjolnir and the Asgardian armor comes back on him, and it's just a really awesome scene, you guys. So it's funny because the entire film, they thought he was nuts. Like Dr. Selvig and Darcy and Jane, they all thought he was kind of crazy. And now to come full circle and see that he really is a deity from Asgard. He is the god of thunder. It's a really awesome scene. It's funny and it's awesome at the same time. So as Thor gets ready to leave and he he kisses Jane Foster and lets him know that he'll return for her one day, which is a really touching scene. There's a lot of emotional scenes in this film, you guys, that are really awesome. Like just some of the stuff with Loki and Thor earlier in the film, Odin and Thor and Frigga. There's a lot of emotions in this film that I really like, because at the core of this story, this movie, it's really just a guy who has been banished, who is trying to do the right thing at the end of the day. And I really like where they went in the direction with this film. So Thor and the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif get teleported back to Asgard by Heimdall, the gatekeeper of the Bifrost Bridge, one of Thor's closest friends. So after Loki kills Laufey, Frigga comes in and thinks that Loki has done some great service to his father, and Thor appears and basically outs Loki that he's started all this. So they get into a fight. And it's a really nice fight scene, because it kind of has to make up for the fact that Loki cannot go toe to toe with Thor, like one-on-one. And usually, like in this film and other films where they do fight, it's always implied that Thor loves Loki. Well, it's not implied. It's we can see that he loves Loki. So he doesn't really ever want to destroy Loki, and I think that's why with this film and this fight scene, he's like holding back. He doesn't want to destroy his brother. So basically, Loki gets defeated by Thor, and Thor has to make the tough decision to destroy the Bifrost Bridge, which would stop him from being able to travel to the other realms, travel back to Earth. And Loki even plays on this and says, well, if you destroy the Bifrost, because at the time, Loki was using the Bifrost to get ready to destroy Jotunheim, and Thor stops him and tells him he can't destroy an entire race, and Loki, is like, oh, what changed you? That woman, Jane Foster. And Loki implies that after he defeats Thor, he'll go to Earth and probably, kill Jane Foster or whatever, because Thor is soft now and whatever. So Loki gets defeated. Thor has to destroy the Bifrost, and Loki basically says that if he destroys it, he'll never see Jane again, and so he just has to make the tough decision to destroy it. They get blasted off the Bifrost Bridge, but at the last second, Odin comes to and is able to grab Thor by the hand, and Loki is like dangling from Thor's feet. So he like pleads to Odin that he could have done it. He could have been the king. He could have made him proud, and Odin tells him no, you couldn't have. And Loki just lets himself fall to his apparent death. And we kind of fast forward just a little bit to the conclusion of the film, where Thor is mourning the loss of his brother, the loss of Jane Foster, and it basically ends with Thor, a touching moment with Thor and Odin, where Thor tells Odin one day he'll make him proud, and Odin tells him, you've already made me proud, and he tells him he hopes that he could be a king like Odin one day, a wise king. And the film basically ends with Thor speaking to Heimdall, because Heimdall can see basically he can see other realms as the keeper of the Bifrost Bridge. So he's able, he basically tells Thor, Thor asks him how Jane is, because he can see her, Heimdall can, and he tells her that, Jane searches for him, loves him, and all this. So the film ends, and we get a post-credit scene that basically teases us of the Avengers. It's Dr. Eric Selvig and Nick Fury, and they're dealing with the Tesseract, which, spoiler alert, is going to play a big role in Captain America, the first Avenger, which we'll talk about next Monday, and is going to play an even bigger role in the Avengers, which we'll talk about the Monday after next Monday, so 2 weeks from yesterday. So it basically ends right there with the tease of the Avengers. Loki survived because we see his reflection, and he's basically kind of like not really controlling Dr. Eric Selvig, but is kind of like overshadowing him, because some of the things he's saying, Selvig is saying. So it's an awesome film, you guys. My only negative critique about this film is that at times, because of the fact that when we're introduced, we see this beautiful shot of Asgard. We see beautiful shots of Jotunheim and these other realms. At times, because most of the film does take place on Earth, after seeing these grand set pieces. This is one of the better shot films of Phase 1, in my opinion, and I'll talk about that after. But after seeing all these wonderful shots and everything, it gets a little stale on Earth at times. There's a lot of times when Thor's on Earth and he's dealing with Darcy and Jane and Eric Selvig, and it's funny and it's cool to see him as this fish out of water. That's really funny, and they play on that a lot. But there's times where we're transitioning from scene to scene on Earth, and the juicier stuff is happening on Asgard. So that's really my only critique about this film, is that at times it does get a little stale midway through when we're dealing with some of the Earthbound stuff. And that's really my only critique. Everything else is positive. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, Anthony Hopkins, I think, is so Shakespearean-like as Odin. And that's another thing about this film, is that when we're dealing with the Asgard stuff, the other realm stuff, this film really feels like a Shakespearean piece, like something just like so grand. There's so much grandeur in this film, dealing with kings and warriors, and there's war, and there's these beautifully designed creatures, and all of this stuff is just really awesome, you guys. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Oh, so my ranking. I almost left the film without my ranking. So based on my 5-tier scale ranking system, this film is awesome. Like I said, my only discrepancy with this film, which like I said is like a little nitpick, is just some of the Earth stuff once we get away from like the grand adventures and some of the things Thor is doing. That's my only nitpick with this film. But you guys let me know in the comment section below, what do you think? Is this film awesome in you guys' opinion? Is it just good? Do you not like it? Is it boring? I've heard some people say that this film is boring. They don't really like it that much. For me, it's definitely one of the best of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1. And I'll say this, and I'll leave you guys with this thought. Thor, in my opinion, is probably top 5 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when it comes to cinematography. And basically what I'm saying is just the wonderful shots. And I know a lot of it is green screen, but you really feel like you're in Asgard firsthand. It's just really awesome. And it's like, to me, it's on the scale of like a Guardians of the Galaxy, where you're out there traveling the galaxy and we see all these wonderful shots of like space, and it's really cool, you guys. This is an awesome film. So let me know in the comment section below what you think. So you guys, check us back here next Monday when we talk about another one of my favorites of Phase 1, Captain America: The First Avenger. So I will see you guys in the next one when we talk about Captain America.